Welcome to Venture with Joe and Cody, where we take a deep dive into the minds of leaders and innovators making a real impact today. I'm Joe.
And I'm Cody. And we're here to bring you the raw stories, the successes, and the setbacks that these trailblazers have experienced in their journey to where they are today.
Every week, we sit down with a new guest who's ready to share their insight and advice on business, entrepreneurship, and making a difference in their community. From local community members to industry experts, you're going to get the unfiltered truth behind their success.
So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned professional, or just curious about the business world, join us for a journey of learning and inspiration.
So let's grab a drink, settle in, and let's get started. This is Venture with Joe and Cody. Hey guys, welcome to Venture with Joe and Cody. I am Joe Skipper with Skipper Realty Group, brokered by EXP. I'm with my friend Cody Wilhelm with Residential Mortgage. As always, how's it going, bud?
Did I'm doing pretty good.
Bud?
You did.
I'm so sorry.
Yes. It's an endearing term.
I actually think that I tried to do a different intro, and that is what I chose. Bud, to say bud. Hey. And it's I'm sorry. We should start again. And no one should ever see this.
Yes. You know what's funny? I find myself, because I call both of our boys Bud and Buddy.
Yeah.
And just always have since they were little.
That's fine.
And I find myself calling their friends that too.
Bud.
Or any kids. I'm hey bud, how you doing?
I know.
And I don't even think twice about it. But
well, calling you bud is a little bit, I'm okay, it was almost to the point of inappropriate. I'm sorry.
Hey pal.
So you're not bud. There's what's the term? There was I'm going to over stereotype this, but boss. A lot of prisoners, or when I was a cop, former prisoners would say boss, and I don't know exactly where it stemmed from. Maybe it was from, in the prison system, they called the corrections officer boss or something like that. I never really cared to find out, but I know that boss was kind of a thing that they said. So when we met someone a little sketchy on the street, or we were that had a criminal history, they always said boss. So it was just one of those things. So when people say boss, I'm have you served time?
Right.
Which maybe is not the right way to go about it, but boss.
Yeah. How long were you in for?
Me to be oh yeah, okay, cool. You've been in prison. So yeah. So anyways, sorry, bud. Sorry.
That's okay, pal.
We're gonna jump all over the place a little bit today. I kind of go over some questions and terms and stuff, but I wanted to cover a new app that I found for anyone that's interested, including you, Cody, who is real estate social media guy that you need to edit your stuff easily.
Yeah.
It's called Captions. So Captions is the app that you can get. I saw it online. That I get a lot of the marketing, and maybe you do the same of that. Use this AI and use this AI, and half of it works, half of it doesn't. Well, Captions is an awesome app so far. There's a limit on how much you can do time-wise on the length of the video, but you can basically put a rough draft video of you just recording, put it in there, and it will edit it in the theme that you want. It will edit in the, it'll zoom in, make sounds, enter the captions, do background, do B-roll.
Oh, wow.
All on its own. And you can start for free. I know it does cost money, but relatively speaking to the time it saves and the ability for it to edit, so far, I love it. The latest video I did with buying and selling, if you check out my Instagram, buying and selling at the same time, I roughed copy, shoved it into Captions. They ask you what you want to edit it what theme you want, and then it just processes and it's done. You have to do some editing of if you do have spaces, or if you messed up and you're still recording and you messed up a statement and you need to go back, you may need to kind of audit that, but man, it's impressive. So if you have issues with editing, anyone out there that has issues with editing your reels, or you want something to look like it's professionally done, Captions has been so far a really awesome program. So
that's good to know, because I have been looking. I've been doing a little bit of digging on that too, because I feel like I want to get past the basic version of videos, which is essentially what I do. So adding more stuff in there, but I realize that I just don't have I'm sure I could make the time for it. It's just I don't necessarily have the want to learn it all and figure it out and then put in that time for a 60-second video. It's
for sure.
At this point, I'll just do something basic, and then I'll find something that will do that for me, because I would love to add more to them, but I get in my own way. So this is great. I'll have to try it out.
Yeah, you should. It's really cool. I'm constantly, for the same reasons, as looking for that sort of stuff, because it takes a lot of time. And I currently hire out my YouTube design or my YouTube editing and stuff. But I just like, if I could, I can't find yet a YouTube, like a long form, throw your stuff in, edits it all out. I'm looking currently for a thumbnail. So if anyone has any thumbnail generators that like make a good thumbnail for YouTube, that's what I'm currently looking. But Captions is a cool app. You should check it out. And I can't wait to see your next video when you do it and you put it in.
I'm going to do one today, so I'll use Captions for it.
Yes, love it. Love it.
Yes.
Well, that's my tech. You have any other tech that you're like, hey, I use this all the time, like this is super helpful for me? Or are you like, no, I don't?
No, I'm still kind of probably similar to like a 50, 60-year-old person when it comes to tech. I'm like, I find out how cool things are once it's not cool anymore. I'm like, wow, have you guys heard of this before? Have you ever used this? And they're like, yeah, that was the first version. We're on to version 10 now. But with that, I have been using ChatGPT more. Like initially when I was using it for more of like, I think I was using it the wrong way, of more of like a internet search type.
Yeah.
As
Which is
opposed
good
to
for
using it.
Like,
yeah, it's great for it. But using it as more of an assistant and research tool, and even helping me with, I mean, shoot, sometimes I use it for stuff that's not even business related, where you just like asking questions and figuring out different possibilities or how to structure something, how to put something together. So using it a little bit more, probably how it's supposed to be used as more of an assistant than just like an internet tool.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of fun.
It is. And it's kind of endless with that. And I've been looking at other, I know ChatGPT is great, but like Perplexity is another one where you can ask.
I've heard of that one.
They're just starting to come out, and it's like, I don't use it like I should. I'm starting to get better at it, but man, I've had friends that are like, you can basically have, you can separate ChatGPT into different things. So you can go into this section and basically say, I need you to be my assistant. Here's my responsibilities. Here's your like all this stuff. And you can make it that. Like I had a friend like try to use it as a travel agent and say, I need to go here. I need to go the best route. I want cheapest. I want most expensive, whatever you do. Like, so there's just like so many opportunities, and that probably is just going to continue to expand to be, they can be your assistant. They can be your, travel agent. They can be your marketing rep, all sorts of stuff. It's intimidating to get into because, it's you say it's endless until you actually see that, man, it is endless what it can do.
It is. I know.
It's crazy what it can do. So I used it as a search engine. I'm starting to use it more as like my assistant, or starting to say like, hey, I need this, I need that, but even the search engine stuff, I just had a hot tub issue, how to replace something. Rather than me Google it, find 18 videos, which one's the best video? Like I just asked it and said, here, I need you to research this. I need you to research this part, find out what's wrong with it and how to fix it. And it's just like, boom, gives you everything, So yeah, super cool. ChatGPT. Perplexity is one I haven't looked at though, like yet. I've heard a lot about it. I think that's more of the research one, if according to what I have been looking into. It's more of the internet search, kind of, it searches the internet to give you the best results of whatever you're asking, but I don't think it can be as functional as your assistant, but I don't know yet.
Sure.
Anyways.
Okay.
ChatGPT is a daily thing for me. And probably the same for you.
It really is. And I, like I said, figuring out how to use it a little bit better, finding different prompts and ways to get the best out of what it is, rather than going back and forth a handful of times, just like telling it like, here are the things, ask me questions, blah, 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 blah.
The cool thing is it memorizes you, and you can tell it to remember it, and it kind of like all the historical stuff you've asked it to do. And so you can start to kind of hone in what it does, and how it knows you,
Yeah. I was considering like changing out the grill on my truck because it's currently the same color as the rest of the truck, kind of like a charcoal gray. And I was like, I wonder what a black one would look like in there. So I uploaded a picture in there and said, make the grill on this black. And it did. And That's so cool. Then it's like, I don't even have to I can see it just as it is.
For sure.
And it's just like simple, stupid things like that too, that I think just from a everyday perspective, you can, if you want to, use it for stuff. And it's simple, easy.
I still use Google for a lot, but I feel like I could probably just go ChatGPT for everything.
Probably. Yeah.
Or a Perplexity, or a combination of both. I feel like, Google does have, I think Google's tapped into some AI. I can't remember, but you sometimes get that first box of when you ask a question.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's Gemini or whatever, but I'm getting too nerdy now.
I think it is, now that you say it. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to go into, there's a lot of questions. A lot of the market right now is crazy. The interest rates are going up and down and daily, left and right. And so I kind of did my own research and ChatGPT's research and to find out kind of what people are looking at. And I kind of went into a rabbit hole of kind of questions they have for lenders and kind of different things. But I think that what hit me the most is some of the key real estate terms that we use on a regular daily basis, you and I use, and, between business to business type of terms that we kind of take for granted and just think clients know it, and they don't. And so I wanted to go over some of the terms. And so I got a bunch of terms, and I get just as confused as everyone else on some of these things. So I'm going to throw some at you, and I want you to kind of help.
Yes.
The first one is PITI, principal, interest, tax, and insurance. So what is that, and what does that all mean when someone hears your PITI?
Yes. So PITI is really important. A lot of times you'll get, if you're looking, say, on Zillow or any online payment calculator, sometimes they will it will just say principal and interest. But the big bold number is the payment of that. So the reason that it's really important to get the PITI is the taxes and insurance for that home. That could be another $800 a month. So I get people all the time that are like, oh yeah, I saw this place and the payment's only $2,100. And I'm thinking, there is no way that payment is $2,100. And then you go look at it all and you find out that, no, it's not actually $2,100. That technically your mortgage payment, your principal and interest is that amount. But your taxes and insurance and maybe mortgage insurance too, all those factor in to give you your total payment. If you're ever looking at something, you want to look at the PITI. So the main thing that you'll probably see is it'll just say principal and interest. And then it might have something that's labeled escrows or taxes, insurance, mortgage insurance. But that's going to make up a good chunk of your payment. So PITI, principal, interest, taxes, insurance. So that's going to essentially give you your real payment that you're going to be making each month. So it is important to see.
Why do people then, or whoever's advertising mortgage, what your mortgage is, why are they advertising that? And is that legal for them to advertise that? Because honestly, that isn't your mortgage when you are told you're $2,100, except for the $1,000 extra month payment,
right?
With everything else. So what's the rule with that? Like, why do people do that? I assume they do it because it makes it look better.
That's the only reason. It's super deceptive, and I don't know if it's necessarily illegal if there's some type of disclaimer maybe that says this is just your principal and interest, and taxes and insurance vary, blah 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 blah. But it's super deceptive, and I feel like if anything, it just hurts you. Why would I want somebody to think that this payment on this house is $2,100 when it's actually $3,100?
For sure.
Baiting you in and getting you interested, you're just letting them down. So you might as well give them the full payment of everything. I think that the only other thing that I could think of is their perspective, which I don't agree with, to be clear, is, well, this is just the mortgage portion. So this is all we're telling you that is due.
Okay.
It's the county. It's the amount that you put down. It's all these other factors that tell you have to pay these other things. But technically your mortgage, your principal and interest payment is this.
Okay.
Outside of that, we don't know. Maybe you're putting 20% down. Maybe you waived your escrow account. Maybe blah, blah, blah. But the reality is, even when those things do happen, you're still paying taxes and insurance, whether you have them escrowed or not. You're still liable for that amount. So it still is deceptive, in my opinion, because it's just not true. It's like, it's everything that none of us as consumers like. Yeah. Like you go to buy a ticket to a game and it's like, oh, sweet, I can get this ticket for $60. And then there's $35 more for processing fees and everything else. And you're like, I wish they would just put the full price on there.
Yeah. And just leave
that
it
way
at
I know I'm buying a $95 ticket instead of thinking so it's the same concept. I think it's like just a way of trying to get people in, but I don't like it because I don't like it as a consumer either. Like feeling like, oh, sweet, that's a good deal. And then you find out that shipping is the same price as the part that you're buying.
Yeah, I know. That's annoying.
Yeah.
Well, one that confuses me all the time, because not necessarily the term, because the term makes sense, but LTV, less the term and what it means, but more when you start factoring in HELOCs and what you can get and all this stuff. Like that's where it gets like super confusing when you're like 80% of LTV and you know all that. So start with loan to value, and then we'll kind of dive into maybe a deeper bit of that.
Sure. So if it makes you feel any better, when I first got into the business, I could not wrap my head around LTV. And I don't know why, because now that I obviously have understood it for a long time,
but it is not. When you're saying it in verbally, it's like, no, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, because it's like backwards. Yes. You know, I think if people understand equity and how much equity you have in a home, it's simple to think it, but then the number is actually reversed. So loan to value. Let's see if I can explain this after so many years
I know.
Finally understand. Okay. So your loan, you have your value of your home. We're going to say 500,000. That's what your house appraised for. And you put down 5%. So you're financing 95% of that home's value. So your loan to value would be 95% because your loan is 95% of the value of the home. So it's really just the number is how much of your loan equals, you know, how much of your loan is eating relative up that percentage of the value. Exactly. If you had 50% loan to value, that means your mortgage is 50% of the value of your home. Once you start getting into like HELOCs or second loans, anything like that where there's an additional loan, that is going to be labeled as CLTV, which is combined loan to value. So you saw it, and we have seen it over the years, and I know it was way more popular, you know, back pre-2009, where they would do first-second combos, where it would be you'd have a 80% and then a 20% loan, right? So your one loan is 80% loan to value, and the other loan is 20% loan to value. So you're still financing the whole thing, but for the purpose of your first loan, you've put 20% down, so you don't have mortgage insurance. And then your second loan is only 20% of the value. Combined, they equal 100%, but it's not, they won't do, say, something like mortgage insurance based on your combined loan to value. It's just on that single loan. So there were ways where people would kind of work their way around having mortgage insurance, or maybe just putting 5% down, but they didn't want mortgage insurance. So they did an 80-15 kind of thing where they're still putting some money down. But the CLTV is really important when it comes to like getting a HELOC or getting a second, because usually once you have a second or a HELOC, it's really kind of tough to get a third lien. Not a lot of lenders want to be in third lien position, because if you file bankruptcy or you lose your house, they're pretty much guaranteed they're not going to get their money. Second place might not even get their money. So you got to find the right situation for that. But a lot of times they will have a cap on what the CLTV is. For example, your mortgage, it's 50% loan to value. So you've paid that thing down 50%, and you want to take out a second loan. Well, they might only let your combined loan to value go up to 80% or maybe 90%. So you've got your 50%, and then you can essentially add in another 30, maybe 40% for that second loan, to where your combined loan to value is now 90% or less. So it's all just like a safety precaution that people aren't overextending. And I don't think any bank really wants people financing 100% of their house. I think it's proven over the last, 10, 12, 15 years or however long it's been now, that it's the market has continued to increase. But I think there's always that risk of what if they start to go backwards, home values start to decline, and now you went into it with 100% financing, and now your home is worth $30,000 less than what you owe. Some people are just going to say, hey, I don't even want to deal with this. I'm just going to throw my hands up. Or do I wait 10 more years and hope that it rebounds? But yeah, LTV, that's really the biggest part of it, is just how much you're putting down or how much equity you have in contrast with your loan.
I think the issue that I always have, and it just requires a calculation that's maybe over my head because I don't do it, is we have a HELOC, and so Christina will talk about, they'll go up to 85% LTV, and I'm like, okay, what do we have? Like what does that mean? Like, and I'm sure it's just a calculation because I'm like, I don't have a clue of what 80% loan to value is when we already have some loan to value, and then, you know, doing that difference of the loan to value they'll give you. I'm like, okay, just But I'm sure if I have this issue and I'm in the industry, like I'm sure everyone's like, everyone else is like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, tell me what I'm allowed to get a HELOC for, and that's it. But yeah, the loan to value is easy when you think of just that initial purchase or whatever. But when you start getting into like, okay, we have X loan to value, and now we're going to ask for a HELOC, and they'll go up to X loan to value. So notice that, you know, what's that difference? And so that's where it's confusing to me, at least.
Sure. If you want a simple calculation for that, just take whatever your home's value is. So we'll say stick with the easy number of 500. And you go 500 times 0.85. And that's going to tell you what 85% of that is. So then that's going to spit out, I don't know the number, but it's going to spit out a number. And then then at that point, if 85% was the max loan to value, then you would know, all right, if that number comes out at I don't know, 400, just say it would be a little more than 400, but say 425. Then you know that all of your loans combined can't exceed 425,000.
Okay. Can't go up to that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I don't remember the calculation for figuring out what your your appraised value and then how much you owe. I think you take the balance and you divide it by the home value, or you take the value and you divide it by it'll tell you what your loan to value is as well with that. But I never remember. The
average consumer is just like, I don't know what's going on here.
So. Yeah, like I don't know and I don't care.
Well, we're on that note, and it's not one of the terms that was brought up, but in my search, but I think it's important, is a HELOC. What is it?
Yeah.
And that has to do with all this loan to value crap. So I have a few different questions with that. But what is a HELOC just in general?
Yeah. So a HELOC is an acronym. There's a million acronyms in the mortgage industry.
Yep.
HELOC stands for Home Equity Line of Credit. So that just means that you're taking out a second line of credit or a loan on your home. And it is treated like a credit card, essentially. So if you take out a $50,000 home equity line of credit or HELOC, then they've said, okay, you have $50,000 that you can use in this equity. And then you can just use it as you want. You can write checks through that account. You can transfer money. It is essentially a $50,000 revolving, like a credit card. And then your payments are based on how much you owe. So if you get a $50,000 line of credit and you've drawn out $1,000, your payment is based on $1,000. Just because you have the line of credit doesn't mean that you just owe on it. There are home equity liens, like a second lien. Instead of a line of credit, they just do a home equity loan. And in that case, they would give you $50,000, and then you're just making additionally, essentially, a second mortgage payment on $50,000, and you have the full lump sum. So I personally like the line of credit better, because then you're only paying on what you're using, as opposed to, if you just need the full $50,000. But yeah, home equity line of credit, it's a second loan. So instead of, a lot of people right now and in the last handful of years, because maybe they have a 3.5% interest rate, they want to take out equity in their home, but they don't want to get rid of that good rate. So they don't want to do a cash out refi. So they want to take out a second loan, which is usually a HELOC, to where they can access that equity because they've built up so much of it, but they don't want it just to be locked in there and never touched.
Yeah, and I don't know if you tell your clients this or anyone. I tell my clients, maybe I'm wrong, tell me if I am, but I'm like, you should get a HELOC. You should always have a HELOC with any house you buy. You can use it as leverage for different things. You can use it as all sorts of things. And if you never use it, it's never there. It's like getting a credit card, but it's leveraged on your home. So one of the cool things is that, say you use that $50,000 of your HELOC, you sell your home 3 years later, and the HELOC's paid for with the profits of the sale, and as long as your home sells for more than what you have owed. But it's nice because it's not like a credit card. One, because credit cards can be upwards of 20, 30% interest rates, whereas a HELOC is what's a HELOC?
10.
Okay. So
probably
significantly less.
Range. Yeah.
But it's a great, we use them as our emergency fund in the event that anything happens. It's just there and it sits there. There is no reason why people shouldn't get one. What would be the downside? Like from a truthful standpoint, what would be a downside? Is there more money involved? Do you have to get another appraiser, like an appraisal on the home that's going to cost thousands, or what?
Yeah, no, because we don't do HELOCs. We're supposed to be getting them here soon, but I've never been at a position in the years that I've done mortgage where I've had access to a HELOC. We've been able to do like standalone second loans.
Yeah.
But I do refer a lot of HELOCs out, and it's super minimal cost. Like a lot of times their closing costs are really, really low, like $500.
Yeah.
And then you pay for an appraisal.
Yeah.
So it's super minimal. And like you said, it's a great emergency fund. It can be for whatever. And if you don't need to use it, you're not paying interest on that. It's not like you're just
there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like you just took out this loan and you're like antsy to get rid of the money, or how do we use this?
For sure.
It's there. It's an emergency, house repairs, whatever it might be, medical bills. And like you said, the interest is significantly lower than a credit card. So
yeah,
there's really no harm in doing it. And especially if you've put down a decent amount, either from the get-go or maybe you have a bunch of equity. You're going to be able to get yourself a decent line.
You got to get your company going.
They're working on it. We're supposed to have it out within
door after this podcast and just talk to the boss.
I'm going to say, you know what? Joe really got on me about this HELOC, so let's get it going.
We got to get it moving, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we're supposed to have it here. I want to say it's within the next couple months, which will be really nice. Yeah, because we're probably a little late to the party. I think HELOCs were like a really popular option when rates started going up. 22, 23, maybe early 24. There were tons of people that were looking to take out equity, but they didn't want to bother with their good rate. So
yeah. So this is going to go off topic a little, not off topic necessarily, but with speaking of your mortgage company, when people shop around, how flexible are you? Maybe this is something that you don't want to get into, but I guess like how flexible are you if someone comes and competes? Like we always tell people to compete with different lenders, see who can offer what. What is the and you can say in general, like what's the flexibility with mortgage lenders in general that you see from a small one to a credit union to a big bank like Bank of America?
Yeah.
When someone says, "Hey, Cody, this place can do X," like where is that flexibility with mortgage lenders? And maybe if we can get to it, maybe without taking a ton of time, is like, why are they different?
Sure. Yeah. No, it's a good question. There's a handful of different variables with it, but ultimately it just comes down to margin. Like how much does it cost for that company to run their business? And if they have more wiggle room in the margins where they can take a hit essentially
on a particular mortgage,
to gain that business, they will. If they just don't have any margin, say for example, they've put out the best rate that they can, or everything is more or less tapped out, and if they go below that, then they're losing money, or they're below what they need to be profitable to, if they're a publicly traded company, blah 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 blah. So some companies, there might not be a whole lot of wiggle room because they're just like, we put out our best and we're sticking with that. And if it beats us, then, sorry, you're just going to have to go somewhere else. Yeah. And then others, they might pad it a little bit more to where they have some more wiggle room in there. But I think it really just comes down to company, because when everything crashed, I don't know what year it was exactly, but they changed lender compensation to where you can no longer, as the lender, I can't gain more income from a type of loan that you do or a rate that you choose. And I can't lose any income if, say, somebody's shopping me and they say, hey, this company is giving me a better rate. Can you beat that? And I take it to my company and they say, yeah, we can beat that. That doesn't come out of my compensation. It only comes from the business. So it's part of it depends on what the business will allow, because it's not as if the loan officer can say, like, there's a part of me that I wish that there was an option.
Yeah, that you could say, I'll take something. Yeah.
Yeah. Say you couldn't gain anymore, right? So that's good. I think that's a good thing. We don't want to be steering people based on, I make more money going with this loan option.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do think, and I don't know, I haven't dove into it to find out why, but I do think that it should be realistic that a loan officer can say, hey, I'm willing to cut my pay to compete and match this. Or, hey, company, I will cut some of my pay and you jump in too, and collectively we beat this and we make this happen. Because I think everybody would agree that getting a loan and making less money on it is better than not getting the loan.
Not getting it at all. That's
what's the
real
point?
estate agents do, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's a lot of it is just margin related. I've talked to people from different companies, and their company is very firm on, we are not giving pricing exceptions. You need to sell that for what it is.
Okay.
And that can be hard, because when you're going up against something and they're like, say, a lot better than what you're offering.
Yeah.
It's really hard to convince somebody, like, hey, I know you're getting a better deal over there, but like, you should stick with me.
Stay with me. Yeah.
You know, and it's like, I think you're probably in the same boat, where any salesperson is in the same boat of like delivering value and reasons why maybe you're worth it. But there are people out there, and there's nothing wrong with it, but there are people out there where it's like, I honestly don't really care what you're doing for me. I care about that extra money that I'm saving, and that's more worth it to me. So it makes it hard, but our company, you know, toot our little horn here, they are more than willing to win when it comes to competing offers. So they're not going to say, hey, just, you know, go out there and gouge the market and try to get this.
Yeah.
If it's something where, you know, somebody comes to me and they say, hey, you know, you sent me this and I got this from this other lender. Awesome. Like, send it over. I'll send it up, and I can, you know, I can't use the word guarantee, but I can feel really confident knowing that our company, like, they don't like to lose. And especially if it has something to do with rate or fee, because, you know, everybody has to charge what they charge to run their business, but they're also in the same wavelength of like, we also need to beat who we can and be competitive, and we can't just not win.
Yeah. Do you find, and maybe this is over generic, but do you find like bigger banks are less likely, or is it credit unions are more likely to flex, or is it just truly based on the business model that business has?
I think it's a lot of the business model. I think that when it comes to bigger banks, and I've never really worked at a bigger bank or even a credit union to know, but just talking to people that do work in those spaces, it seems that there's a little less flexibility. And sometimes it's just because that's not really what their primary business source is.
Yeah, they're not solely
like
on mortgage.
Yeah, like a part of our business is mortgage. So if it fits our box, great. If it doesn't, we're okay telling them, hey, you know, sorry, you're welcome to go over there. We're going to have our billions of dollars in deposits and auto loans and everything else that really keeps the machine going. So I think you're probably going to get it the most with mortgage companies and brokers and people that are just like mortgage specific. Like, that is all they do, because that makes sense. That is the only way for them to continue to make money. So they're probably going to be a little bit more aggressive when it comes to that. And they are likely going to have more opportunities to go through different options, as opposed to, say, maybe a bigger bank or a credit union, where they might just funnel everything through themselves.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, we don't really have a ton of flexibility here. You're dealing with other investors and other companies that are going to be buying that loan, and they have to price it accordingly and attractive. And so
for sure,
it's kind of just like the market almost, where it's like you pull up all the different rates, and those are different investors, and, you know, it's all for the same type of loan, but hey, this investor clearly wants more business because they're pricing it more attractively. And so
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Just a couple that I'll go over. MLS, that's our multiple listing service. We talk about the MLS all the time. That's basically what we have to formally put our homes in for a listing. And then that is when Zillow, the Redfins all grab that information from the MLS to all the stuff you see on Zillow and Redfin are from the MLS ultimately.
I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't quite realize, that they think that by going to Redfin, they're going to find different houses, and Zillow and this person, like,
for sure,
it all funnels from there, right? So like, I know there are different results. Say Zillow sometimes I know has been known for having stuff that's maybe not 100% accurate.
Yeah.
But in theory, it should all be pulling from there, right?
Yeah, it pulls all the data from there, and then Zillow has their own stuff, like, you know, their little fluff that they put on the mortgage calculator, their Zestimate, and those sort of things. So that's not coming from the agent. The data for the home is coming from the agent. The description, the bedroom, bath, the square footage, all the stuff, all the pictures. But Zillow then adds their own fluff to, you know, here's what we estimated at. And that is based on their own algorithms. That's not based on the agent. That's based on their own algorithms that they do. And it really is computer generated. So in a residential neighborhood that had 8 sales in the last 6 months, and they were all pretty similar homes, Zillow can be more or less accurate with their estimates. A home that, especially like your home that is out, has property and has those sort of things, they still just pull from a certain area around you and say, well, these all sold around you with a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, or 3-bedroom, 2-bath, whatever your home is. And they don't factor in the different things, or the remodels, or the the upgrades you did, or the fact that it could be a disaster of a home. Yeah, the MLS the data gets pulled, but then Zillow does their own stuff with it. And that's where I think people get kind of pushed inaccurately with Zillow and those sort of sites to say, well, Zillow says it's worth this. It's like, well, Zillow is a computer that just looked around their area on Google Maps and said, this is what's sold recently.
Sure.
So they can be accurate, but we have this program that's cool that'll put in, we do our own research, we figure out our market analysis, and then we put it in, and it'll go compare what Zillow estimated it at and what the home actually sold for. So it'll show how close or how inaccurate Zillow was with that particular home.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's kind of cool because it kind of helps people see, like, okay, Zillow was 14% off, like, of what they estimated all these homes at and what they actually sold for.
Sure.
So kind of cool.
Interesting. Okay.
Anyways, well, we're like always long-winded, and we're already towards the end of the podcast. So yeah, we could have gone on forever. We always are like, what should we talk about today? And then we end up, always just blabbing forever, and
we can fill the gap pretty quick.
On. Yes, exactly. So, well, that was good. I think next week maybe we talk about some current questions and things that people have regarding the current market, and kind of maybe our thoughts on that and what your thoughts are with lending and stuff like that. So but I guess that's all I got, man. Well, until next week.
Let's do it.
Okay, we'll talk to you later.
All right, man.
Okay, see ya.
See ya.